Now. And with that, we'll get underway. I have an apology from Fred Litchbark, who won't be joining us tonight. But otherwise, no apologies at this stage. And Ian, I'll hand over to you to kick us away.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Just a quick update from across. It's been quite an exciting last few weeks, actually, with regard to progress. The Water Governance Board visited the TK wastewater treatment plant as part of their last board meeting. They've signed off on the resource consent proposal for that, and so we're progressing the resource consent for that, but also the building of the plant. So that's all going really well with Watercare, which is great stuff. That's leveraging some of the experience in Raglan. I was in Merry last week, where they did the site blessing and induction ready, and that construction is going ahead in terms of the treatment plant they're putting on there, which is an MBR plant. So that's quite exciting too. So all these things are happening in the district, really seeing Watercare come into the fore. And I think that's really, we're seeing that again with Raglan as well, the same thing. Interestingly, the Water Governance Board are due out in Raglan. I think the next board meeting is the 8th of December, and we'll be visiting the water and wastewater treatment plants to bring them up to speed with what's happening in Raglan as well. So they're really getting into the detail now, which is quite exciting, and lots going on. So yeah, we've got a few things on the quite a lot to talk about tonight. So we'll get into some of the nitty gritty with Steve. With that technical update, and then we've got responding to your questions. Rick, apologies for not getting back to you. I know you've been chasing. I've been particularly busy this last few weeks, but knew this was coming up and we could talk about it here. So we've got some responses with regard to that waters reform money. I've just been to the Water New Zealand conference today, and myself and Carol were at a discussion with the new water regulator, a workshop yesterday as well. So we've just been busy getting on with things. So without further ado, probably hand over to Steve to take us through this evening's presentation and update. So yeah, hopefully it's all good. Any questions? Happy to take them.
Yeah, hopefully it's all good.
Well, I hope so.
I'll share my, yeah, man. I'll share my screen. I won't press the leave button. No, hopefully it can. Bloop.
Yep, that's good, Steve.
Yeah, and I've come to the top. Yeah, so I'm at the first page. So this is what intended just to cover today. So part A, part B, part C. So on part A. So this is for the last several meetings, I've sort of just done a state of play, like just saying what I'm going to cover in terms of the work streams that have gained some momentum over the month or so. So I've got something to talk about with all of this lot tonight. So I'll start with the option A and B, which is existing and extended outfall. So I know this is a lot of these. It's sort of like, oh God, what are we just going over this again? But we really have to do, for each option, we have to investigate equally just for best practice, best practical option determination. We've had the outfit out that was able to do the non-intrusive seismic investigations of the depth of sand. We had today, before we had them out there, it was just using historic bore records where there really wasn't any really certainty of the depth. I think it was really thinking it was maybe 5 meters of shifting sands on that under the water. But after the testing, which I can put up on the website, and we'll put up on the website, it seems it's probably, well, it's a lot deeper. It's 11 to 12 along the 1.3 kilometers anyway that we looked at between the existing point and also moving up the harbour mouth. So what that means is it gives a clear idea of what's needed for a feasible discharge option, putting it out to get the better dilutions using a duck bill. But it would also have to, any new system to avoid a stump, which we've got now, would be fixed because of the strong tides there just damaged the other one and took it away. So that wouldn't be repeated. So the costing work is being worked through, just getting contractor prices, etc., and just drawings, and that should be wrapped up by the 30th of November. So the next work stream was the MBR, which the MBR was the treatment and the discharge solution for this option. We were looking at a stream recharge or a freshwater co-mingling. So earlier in July, we did the first set of ecological testing, which is quite a broad brush testing of streams in the locality. It was quite black and white that there was some streams of very high ecological significance further up, so that wasn't suitable for any sort of testing. But it was thought that looking closer to the tributaries, the unnamed tributaries that run through the site, was worth investigating further, particularly to do a fish survey and understand the saline, like the wedge of the saline area and freshwater co-mingling area, which is the breeding, the spawning area for whitebait. So we did that last month. Day one was just the salinity gradient testing, which is using connectivity to figure out where the fresh meet the salt, and it was past the day pond. I don't know if you can see my little cursor scrolling around there, but it was up right into the site past the day pond. So the next part of it on day one, it was setting traps, which was this is part of the fish survey. So there was 20 traps set. It was 2 sets of 10 over 100 meters, and that the first area was around pond tributary 2, and the second one was around pond tributary 1. So the day 2, I mean, I was there for day 1 and day 2 for parts of it, and it was day 2 was trap retrieval. So I'm just going to go quickly to the next slide and come back to this. So where the first trap retrievals that I stuck around for in pond 1, it showed that there was a mixture of native, the inanga, and some mosquito fish, and also a short fin eel. So that was cool. And then the next 10 meters up, it became clear that there was a lot, that it actually was quite a healthy stream in terms of juvenile fish life. It became a sort of an uncountable number where the majority were inanga and the less amount were the pest mosquito fish. So where that really gets us to is that there is ecological significance. It wasn't known up until that point really what the degree of it was. It could have been, it's sort of when you go into these things, is it just a grimy, muddy sort of tributary? But it isn't, and it's a tribute to the planning that was done upstream a little bit, and also the health of the Raglan harbour. There is fish travelling up here, and so then when you look at it from in terms of a discharge, is it even suitable? If you can't mitigate an adverse effect, it isn't suitable. And so when you're looking here, it's in the summer, there's a low flow there, so it adding anything additional to it, even though it's at the limits of treatment with an MBR, it still has a degree of ammonium and nitrite in it. So those two are toxicants. So they just are. So it's sort of like adding it to an area where there's juvenile fish breeding, they wouldn't sit well with anyone. So it just does make a streamer charge look more difficult. So the next part of it, and even appropriate, that's sort of the next part of what we're doing now. We've got the fish survey, and it's the next part is hand over and talk about the water quality and make a clear conclusion about the appropriateness of it. In April, there's going to be additional spawning study. That's at the spring tide, where you can actually, it sounds like it's a bit of a crude methodology, but that's what you do. You just go out there and actually count the eggs, just to really understand the mitigation. I mean, the ability to enhance the habitat there. There could be areas that could be shaved off for greater areas for spawning of whitebait. So that's something that's coming up, but oops. So yes, the next a real point to consider here is the case study. So in May there was a regional council decision on a South Waikato District Council application for open country in Waharoa. I mean the Waharoa open country plant, and that was again it was an MBR to have a year-round highly treated wastewater to the Waitoa River, and that was declined. It was contrary to the objectives of the National Policy Statement on Freshwater Management, etc. So it wasn't appropriate. So that should take a strong bearing on this. So that's good. It's progress. We know more about that stream. It's probably it is the most study that's ever been done on it. So here we go. So part B is just bringing results to Hapu and the community. The next part of the work we've done the last month is the non-deficit irrigation to land, or the irrigation options. So this plan was brought up last meeting, and it's a weighted attributes assessment, which really looks at what would be the most suitable parcels of land at balanced topography, distance from plant, setbacks, soil qualities, and so what we have here is a lot of green plants, which represent a good 40 landowners. There's lots of different parcels held under the same landowner. So there's been 3 instances where we've made contact with landowners over the project. It would have started in 2019. We before we were still working through the best places to target. Talked to 6 people, July 14, and the last month 20, which is just contacting people by letter initially, just talking about the project. And you never know your luck. It was just saying this is where we're at. We have to investigate multiple options. This is one of them, and it'd be great to just have a discussion and understand if you have any ideas of selling or long-term lease in your future plans of running your business. So again, it was all non-obligation. It was just introduce it, and there's a chance to have a cup of coffee with a couple of people, but really there wasn't anyone that was saying, yep, we were just about to put on the market. But properties do come up on the market. There's one on Trade Me now, which is I've just put there. It was 12 kilometers out. That's sort of out of the range of feasibility for this project, but it's just showing that for what you can get for in Raglan, there's 200 hectares of grazable land, 83 hectares of pine. So that would be thinking about this option. It would be land purchase, distance, etc., for pumping and for pipe length. So again, so the other little table there, I hope it seems to be reiterated several times. It's said it is the areas needed for a workable scheme are quite large for a non-deficit. So non-deficits where you're really putting as much on the land as you can, still meeting the right standards. So it'd be 90 to 190 hectares for 100% non-marine plus the storage. So that was the 150,000 meters cubed of storage, which would be some sorts of like gully damming, etc. So when you look at that, you go, cool, these farms are large, etc. But on the flip side, this is another part of the study. When you talk about these properties, if it's over 30 degrees of topography, it's not really irrigatable area. So in some places it really halves the amount of irrigatable area. With the ones towards Mount Koriri, there's more sort of slope to consider. So while the pumping might be less, it's still, while the distance might be less, the pumping will be more. Out to the east is sort of greener areas, but then it's the counterbalance, it's the length to be considered. So again, all these things is for the technical side of things. It's just to say, if this is an option, how would it happen? And it wouldn't be obviously immediate, and you never would think it would be. You'd be very lucky to have it immediate, but it's just long-term planning. How would this scheme work, and present it to everyone for decision making? Is it a cumulative acquiring of land, and having in the interim understanding that there's going to be some marine option, but having a longer term vision. So the last part of it is now we've sort of getting to the end of the costing. It will be completed by the 30th of this month. This is the timeline we're working on. So we're getting really to the end of the technical and costing side of things. So giving time to breathe, it's a chance to really think about the other aspects of the project and what the deliverables were and how we're going to meet those objectives. So I've sort of just brain dumped what I'm up to and planning to do, and it's sort of really thinking about the innovation ability and the innovation space that can accompany this project. So in the top sort of corner there, that's a 1 meter by 1 meter cubed sort of trial worm farm, and this is the sort of thing that can occur on the site. There's plenty of room. It's just the methodology now is working with our Newmarket up in the Brains Trust up there. They're doing similar work up there. So when the next one down, I'm looking at EcoCast and Kawerau, and they're doing windrows for worm farming. There wouldn't be any sort of scale of that, but it's just an example of how you can reuse. And so that's part of the biosolids management strategy that needs to occur for this project and others that Ian talked about. We're getting MBRs in Meri, so there wouldn't be a pile of biosolids being created there. There might be one bag a month type thing, but it still has to be could be part of the strategy along. The greater ones would be the Huntley and the TKs, obviously. Again, the biosolids management isn't dependent on the treatment or discharge. There's opportunities biosolids are produced with either. So when I'm just going around the room, round in an anti-clockwise direction, I'm just looking at the plant. There's actually, within the designation, there's actually a lot of space to start putting some stuff in the ground and working through trials. So that's what I'm intending to do in terms of planting examples. Like for the first instance, it's just working with hapu and others just to consider what a hybrid cultural evapotranspiration sort of earth cell might look like, and getting them in the ground is just as a start, working through it and engaging the right people to help work through these things. Follow through from that. There's also with the cropping, we've got a cropping paper up on the website, but again, you need examples to show how cropping can be a viable business for others. So again, that's something that should be looked at and shown as an example about, yep, this is something that if you're keen, we're keen. There's water there produced for this purposes, and here's an example of when there's water scarcity, how it can be utilized for growing. I've also grabbed a couple of snapshots I took when I was up in Auckland. They've got this is from Mangere Bridge. It's just showing it's just an in-your-face example of what climate change and coastal induction could or may look like without change. And there's another one at Kelly Tolden's as well. There's a coastal induction tool on the WRC website that shows moving through the years what would happen in the coasts of the regional council. So this is something that can be achieved in terms of signposting, marking, just another side of things as education, which is mitigation for the discharge. Again, there's another Maui dolphins spotted that was in Mangere Bridge. And we've talked a lot about it early on in the project. Like this could be a company with lots of with a clear messaging: don't flush because of toxoplasmosis. The other part of it, when I'm looking at about 3 o'clock, it's just showing. It isn't a great photo, but it's just showing some juvenile planting and some waineting around it, and it's saying. And the reason I put this in is that bird fouling, etc., has become. You'd hate to create a good stream of treated wastewater. It needs to be culturally treated to remove tapu. etc. But you do your best not to degrade it anymore, and this is some of the methods that we can just work through, trial, and show that there is ability to get earth contact and roots of nature contact, which is needed to meet cultural bottom lines, hopefully. So I'm running out of breath. I think that's me. I'm gonna hand over to you now, Carol, if that's cool, just to go with part B.
Thanks, Stephen. Yep, that's fine. That's all good.
Yep.
So I just sort of take you through a little bit about the Three Waters reform, just talking about the different stages that they're at and what we know about it. So have been considering solutions to challenges facing delivery of our three waters. I think that's across most councils in New Zealand. We all know we've got issues there. So new legislation be passed and the creation of a new regulator organisation called Taumata Arawai. They will oversee and enforce a new drinking water regulatory framework. In addition to that, they're also going to have an oversight role for wastewater and stormwater. The starting intention, because they're still working out what it's going to look like, is that we'll end up with public multi-regional models for water delivery services to realise the benefits of scale across all our communities and especially our neighbouring catchments and communities. So at the moment, the preference of whatever these entities might be is that it would have shared ownership of local authorities. And so that first part on the screen that we can see, tranche 1, talks a little bit about that. And as part of that, council entered into an MOU with the government to support looking at the improvement of Three Waters. And by signing up to that MOU, amongst a sort of a host of things, one of those things, it unlocked the potential for us to apply for funding. The government had a $761 million stimulus funding package out there, and it was divvied up between councils, and Waikato District Council share, eligible share to apply, was 11.34 million. And I'm really pleased to say that we have had all our projects approved in that just a few weeks ago. So out of that 11.34 million, we do have one specific Raglan project, and that is looking at a water treatment plant installing a filter barrier at the plant that will include a connection and monitoring on the filter performance on our SCADA networks. And it will help to manage the increased turbidity levels in the spring water and be able to provide greater security for supply for the Raglan community. Now that funding did have quite a bit of criteria. There was lots of things we would have liked to have done, but we did have to make sure it stimulated the economy, that it created jobs, continued to maintain investment in our water infrastructure, renewals and maintenance. And one of the key things is whatever projects we submitted have to be fully completed by the end of March 2022. So it's not a long time frame for that. And one of the other things was that it couldn't be in our current year of our long-term plan or our annual plan. It had to be additional things because they wanted to create additional jobs and stimulate the economy, as I mentioned there. So we've got a range of projects in there. Raglan's got a share of that. Also signing up to that MOU, we've committed to providing a whole heap more data and analysis that Watercare and WDC are working through at the moment. We've got 3 months to supply that data, and it is extensive. But that will enable central government to understand better each of the councils and consider how they might want to structure us in a reform in the future. So we're expecting, I think it's about May, that it will go before Cabinet, looking at what it might end up. And you can see at the end of, on the slide there, end of tranche 1, legislation being introduced around the end of the next financial year and passing in the next financial year. We don't know in tranche 3 or tranche 2 or 3 what the requirements will be. It's talked that there's likely to be more funding. We don't know what the criteria is around that, but it's a really exciting time for us to think that we may be able to get some of that to help our communities. The website there on the slide, Rick actually shared the same website in his email. If you've seen that, that does have more information on the Three Waters reform if anybody wants to find out some more information on it. And Rick, just your question about did we consider that funding for the land-based solution? We weren't able to because we couldn't feel that could meet the time frames and also the job stimulation, but it's something maybe in tranche 2 and 3, depending what that ends up looking like in the criteria, we perhaps can consider. But that's probably it on the Three Waters reform.
Cool. Shall I stop sharing?
Sure. So then we were just going to open it up for queries on any of Steve's items or the waters reform item.
So quite a lot of data this time, Stephen. It's rare to see someone quite so excited about what they now know doesn't work.
That's progress.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's an Einstein or Edison quote in there too somewhere, I think. But there's just a small number of us, so we can probably just sort of indicate who wants to speak next. I think, Rick, you've taken yourself off mute, so I'll go to you first.
Yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, great to hear. Congratulations for getting some money for Waikato for some of the other projects. And agree, you know, those are pretty harsh criteria to come up with a project that's not in this year, but has to be spent by March, next year or within a year after that. So pretty tough criteria. Yeah, I'm super interested still, you know, in Konings Farm, and you know, and you know, I don't want to harp on about it if it's you know a no-go, and it's kind of in relation to the reserves, the draft reserves management plan that's been put out there as well. So kind of interested to hear if Watercare, if this group of people are going to put in the submissions to say, you know, that potentially Wainui plus Konings Farm plus the golf course is got potential for the future. So that would be one. Are we putting in a submission, or is Watercare putting in a submission? And the other one is, you know, if you can, I was super interested, Steve, you know, in some of that data around how many hectares you need, and that's for a system which is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's about basic, you know, putting on the land and allowing soil absorption or vegetation absorption. But if we were to come up with a system that was to more intensively use that water, do you feel that sort of Konings Farm plus Wainui plus the golf course is still a go?
Yeah, so the systems that were looked at there would be for cut and carry, and for not dairy, for beefies. I think again, cut and carry would be the preference because you avoid pugging, etc. But so in terms of the golf course, I've talked to Chris Harris at the golf course and just said in terms of the use of that area for any sort of discharge solution is limited. There really isn't any chop there at all. It's sort of that and Wainui Reserve are the least sort of suitable bits of land that could be used. It would only be for a reuse option, really. It just would. We could put it there and it would say, cool, it goes there for a month in summer, and the rest of the time it just wouldn't work. So in terms of the submission to the reserve management plan, that's easy. I was going to do it and just say this is where we're at now in terms of having the available space that doesn't interfere with any human activities, sound splash, horse trails, etc. may not be significant, but again, it's just you got to start somewhere. It's just trial work that shows those sloping areas of farm. How could that be used in accordance with any sort of any sort of steering committee of the Wainui Reserve Trust or anything, just to say, cool, we want to put in this amount of hemp just to show that it can be done. We need land. This is public land. That was what I was really going to the basis of it all. It wouldn't be for any sort of discharge solution because, again, it wouldn't. There isn't an ability for it to to have any sort of significant discharge use. Coning, we talk to coning oftentimes. I just do, but just being part of this project. Same diff there. There would be, again, I can keep, and I still want to keep talking to him. He's great. Just saying, well, what would we be buying? What would we be looking at him for? He's got his own plans for residential, which is cool, which leaves that 300-meter buffer around it. He wants his money, wants to land bank that there. He doesn't at the moment, but he says, talk to me if you want. There's a few things I'll be considering out of it myself, which is absolutely fine. What would we use it for? It could be, again, it could be just, I don't know, it wouldn't be a significant discharge option. You'd still have to have you'd still have to have an outfall with that. And that's even even if it was intensive planning, I don't know what the planning would be. That's the miracle plant vetiver that we're at least looking at now. When vetiver was introduced in July, as it's sort of has a deep root system. And it was I use it for essential oil generation, but it has other properties as well. It's not a native. It's obviously not a native plant, but it's a sterile plant that they have a nursery up north. Yeah, I don't know, Rick. I'll talk to you about this further. I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question too much. Seems to be the same thing I've sort of said before.
Yeah, maybe I could. We could have a yarn a little bit later on. I'm still interested in understanding a little bit more about kind of the size of land and whether it's multiple pockets or whether we can do something there with the existing infrastructure and the ponds. I agree. We probably still need to have discharge to sea as high volume option for the future. But yeah, just interested in to see if those soils and that sized farm would work.
Yeah, so it wouldn't work. It would be the amount that's available. There wasn't enough area for it. Just on the thing, but again, that's just me saying it. And you're right. It needs to be. You need to get a better understanding yourself. So I'll follow up on that, and we'll do that.
Stephen, can you just confirm? So that the area is required for the rate of transpiration. It's not for the nutrient uptake. So, like if you effectively did quaternary treatment, MBR level, and now you're just wanting to land spread, to effectively transpiration and excess, through the ground movement into the natural waterways. Is that same level of land area?
So, so you're talking about the different treatment options there between the MBR and the.
Well,
and
if you treat to the nth degree, therefore that the land disposal is not for treatment, it's just for processing the hydraulic volume of water. Is it the same land area required so that you're meeting the Waitapu, kind of focus?
Yeah. So you're right. There's how much the land can take and how much the land in terms of soil capacity, the type of land, and also how much it should take in terms of nutrient concentrations. So because I think we said earlier on that it has to be managed carefully, that you don't seem like, okay, cool, we've run out of land, now we have to buy some more because the population's growing. You've got to manage it in a different way. In terms of having an MBR and land discharge, that wasn't really one of the options that we looked at, because you're sort of getting the affordability of it sort of becomes too great if it was going to be an MBR, and then an MBR and then a deep bore injection even might have been too much. But that's that sort of coupling up of things, two treatments, it would be a very expensive exercise. I'll get back to you on that one, Tony, just to say like how much lessening of it does it having a highly treated wastewater to land, how much area do you need? I think it's almost time that we brought in our PDP expert to have one of these Zooms, because I get lost a little bit in it.
Yeah, because that then opens up, because if you've treated it to that high level, then that also down the road opens you up to, water reuse at, say like at the golf course and stuff like that, where you're not worried about the fact that effectively it's treated all the way to potable levels, and now it's either into the harbour or, onto the land to meet Waitapu requirements.
Yeah, good points. Again, something for me to check in with the bigger brains, and then sort of present that to the rest of the community. And the query is MBR and land discharge. What would that look like?
Yeah, and I think Chris, you've got the same question effectively in simultaneously via chat. Is that right? So
yeah, exactly. Not just the land recharge. Like, should we not? If MBR is the desired treatment, why are we not now looking at what is the cost of MBR with all the different discharges? So MBR with land, MBR with injection, MBR with ocean outfall, and MBR to stream recharge. Because at the moment, MBR seems to be the #1 treatment option, but it's only married to stream recharge. So it would be good to know, and especially based on some of the noises coming out of central government, when you say very expensive exercise, is that, has that been costed? And as Tony said, if all of that land doesn't actually get, all of that wastewater doesn't actually get absorbed into the ground, some of it does eventually make its way to the harbour via the land, because of obviously over saturation. If the water is highly treated, what is the effects, or do we even know those?
Yep. Definitely can follow up on this, and you're right, it's a different sort of playing field when you talk about where the Three Waters reform is going. So what the hell, the costing is going to be the same. We're doing that costing now, saying like what may seem like fanciful before, buying a heap of land and doing MBA may not be. So that's easy. I'll do it.
I think that what I took out of Tony's comments too is that the fact that the golf course, for example, is unavailable to us. If you had a very highly treated, let's say almost potable water that's come out of MBR, maybe it is back in play, because that's a different issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it would be. It still wouldn't change the characteristics of the land and the soil type thing. So when there's water everywhere, and you know what it's like, it'll just be on concrete, it'll just go into the harbour there, and it just will. So hopefully those other slides I've shown throughout this just show that the clay and the difficulty in getting through that, the permeability is real and can't magic a way around it.
But does that get us compliance with Hapu's requirements of Waitapu? And that, so I'm really, instead of looking at the land as the treatment device, looking at the land and that also potentially opens up into Wainui Reserve, and that where we're just hydraulically irrigating the land with the expectation that yes, it will travel down the subsoil, hit the clay layer, and then travel horizontally to the existing waterways.
Yeah. So the bottom lines I've had is that we've had is not keen on the sorts of gabion boxes that we've seen with other systems. They don't look very sexy, and they're not. But it's just that's the easiest. That seems to be the most reliable way to retain the integrity of the highly treated of a treated wastewater before it gets on it. And every hapu is different. We've heard the key messages here that it's the roots of nature and going through soils and roots is what we're after in this rohi. So that's what those are the guiding lights, my guiding points that I'm going through and just trying to figure out the best way to meet that, working with hapu. And again, it's just have a chance to think about and breathe about it. And that was the last slide, the innovation. What does that mean? We can do some trialing at our site.
So effectively that's kind of coming full circle back to my original ray back in the beginning of, hey, what about a man-made wetland on our existing site? that, you know, effectively takes the highly quaternary treated waste.
Yeah, this isn't a wetland, man. We've got wetlands in Huntly and Nerawahia. They don't work. no one touches them these days, I'm afraid. And that's just the facts.
but you know, it's the gabons with plants in them. That's what I mean by a man-made wetland, and that all it's doing is processing the water hydraulically. It's not actually treating the water.
Yep. So an man-made earth cell type thing. Yep.
Yeah. And then we're discharging into those existing waterway right there at the wastewater treatment plant.
With what treatment though? With the MBR, that would be the problem. We're saying that the waterway has life cycles happening in that way, and so something that can't be mitigated. It wouldn't be appropriate to do that under NPS or RMA to do that if that's the case. We're finding that there isn't a chance for enhancing that environment. Again, I'm just talking about what I'm hearing. We're still getting to get the report, but this is my guts saying that it is going to be very difficult. You don't want to, if there's natural processes happening there, you're not going to add another contaminant to it. We can enhance it just because it's the right thing to do. There was always the first round of consenting, it was to make a habitat for that, and that's how we've got that windy man-made thing in there. That was to encourage it. It's working, but can we do better? Yes, I think we probably could. But
I just kind of realised that, as you point out, where the salinity gradient is, if we put a whole lot of fresh water, even though it's been through MBR, it's been through a Gabon boxes, therefore it's touched land, you're going to push that salinity point further downstream.
Yeah, and there's still residuals within. It's not a. It is. You need a reverse. You need something another next tier of treatment to get it to drinking water standard. There's still residual ammoniums and nitrites. It's all good, Tony. I've got it written down. I know what I have to do to answer your questions.
Okay, yeah, so I've got a couple of speakers here. Edward, did you want to speak to your chat? And then Charlie, I think you're next, and John follow.
I was just going to say that if you're going to produce stuff of a high quality through an MBR, aren't you doubling up or increasing your costs by putting it through a secondary form of treatment when it's already at a high level? That was one thing. And also today I heard about a new MBR down in the Rotorua Lakes district area. They put a new MBR plant there to stop stuff going in some of the lakes. It's all been done with iwi sign off. It's on iwi land actually, and they've got an MBR discharge to rapid infiltration trenches on land there quite close to the lakes. But that was all signed off, and the iwi seemed quite happy with that. Is that an option?
I'm getting a bit tired, Richard. Yeah, I think it's time you had some talking.
Yeah,
Richard, I know you're there.
Yeah.
Need your mic, man.
Sorry. Hi, Edward. Yeah, we've visited that site twice, and to be honest, the soil of their soil disposal of the end effluent is totally different to the soils we're dealing with here with those volcanic soils. Plus, the more we looked at what they'd done there, I don't think it's a particularly cost-effective example of how we want to do things in Raglan at all. They virtually treat the water twice in that whole system. The MBR isn't really being utilised as it should be. Like we have done a lot of work at looking at modelling how our plumes and things would come out as far as the stream discharge, but really the nitrate and the ammonias were. Sorry, I just muted it again. It really knocked us a bit on that option, Steve? And we've only just had that information in the last couple of days, so we're sort of processing it and sort of thinking how the stream recharge one could still be a goer. Getting back to what Tony was suggesting around some sort of cultural running of land running it over land. Me and Steve talk about this stuff all the time, and it is definitely something which we will work with EV and see if there is a way which that could be progressed with the existing stream recharge, the existing outfall, sorry, or an enhanced outfall. But there's been quite a bit of work looking at that stream, understanding it. As Steve said, it hasn't just been the latest stuff he's done. He's been working on getting it modelled and QMRA assessments and all that, Steve. So it's something which is in our top 5 options, easily, and but we've just got to work on it. Yeah. Back to you, Steve.
Yeah, the first part of your question, Ed, was why would you do something beyond the doing an MBR? And that would be because from a Western, I think,
yeah,
the reasons. I think just the
I know the EV considerations. I was just thinking, if you're going in beyond a basic sort of land contact, any money you spend above and beyond that would seem to be, a bit of a waste of finances. Maybe it'd be nice if you can afford to do both, then great. You could experiment with some of these variables that you've been talking about on top of your MBR treatment. Cropping and wetlands and whatever else. But that's you've got to think of the financial considerations of paying for it twice, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it's again. I don't know if it's time to talk about it, but we are entering a different area with 3 waters, and Chris has had a chance to, during election, talk to others as well and say what is Raglan? What do we want here? And is this could this be a beacon? Could this be an example for a nationwide model? So where that goes, I'm not quite sure, but that would suit this community to even go outside and think and try and put Raglan on the map as doing something different and out of there for New Zealand. Is that a good summary? Chris, you speak better than me. What were you thinking about?
Well, I mean, yeah, I got invited to a little meet and greet where Jacinda and Anai Mahuta were there, and got to talk to both of them very briefly. And especially Nanaya was very keen to come out when we're a bit closer to the end game. And she was her main thing was like, be aspirational. Don't be afraid to kind of aim high. We obviously can't guarantee anything, but consider all options. Even if one of those options does seem like a little bit out there in terms of financial cost, there's no reason why Raglan wouldn't be a perfect kind of trial or test town. We're big enough but small enough. We have like ups and downs in terms of flow. So I think the main takeaway from both of them, and also meeting James Shaw, was that they are keen. They know they're going to be putting a lot of money into this kind of infrastructure, and especially in small towns around New Zealand. So don't be, don't let necessarily put all options on the table, was basically what they said.
There's no doubt, Chris, that this tranche 2, tranche 3, we don't know what it looks like, but we know that government has an appetite for it, and we know the numbers are going to be very big. And our project will just be a minuscule, pimple on the backside of what it will take to fix the country. It is an absolutely worthwhile iron to keep hot in the fire if we can, through your connections and those of the council directly through to ministry as well.
I think James called it the tip of the iceberg when they talked about the 750 that's been put in tranche 1. He said that's the tip of the iceberg. So whatever that means.
Yeah, that's right. All right, I'm just conscious of time, and so I've got at least 2 more speakers. Charlie, you're cunningly disguised as Aaron Rodgers today, but
incognito again. I didn't have a lot to say other than the fact that, and I came in a little late, sorry, but it does seem that our instincts from the beginning were correct, that the solutions, it doesn't seem to be clear cut that we'd be able to do 100% on land. What I'm hearing, and I think I go back to what Rick and Tony were saying, and Chris, I think it's going to be you know, these little examples, and I go back, like we were saying, regarding the golf course and these other usage type of situations where the community would get a sense that we're getting some benefits. And I think, you know, I think we're all pretty much on that same page, most of us in this conversation. And so just to like keep everything like Chris is saying on the table, because each little project that maybe we use the extra water and nutrients for becomes the mitigation, you know, that's required to get it over the line in the community. And I think the practical terms, even with iwi, you know, if they know that they can see that these trials are taking place, that we're moving, you know, like in a step-by-step process. We may not get there all in one leap this time, but if we are irrigating the golf course, and if we are growing something on the reserve, if we're using the 300-meter buffer around Koning's farm, or wherever else we're doing, I think it's going to be just critically important that the community knows that movement is going. And like I said, it'll be great if we can get all there in one leap, you know, with some massive funding. But I think, you know, just in the shorter term, those things aren't expensive, those mitigations. And so anyway, that's just my thoughts too going forward, is to keep those on the table and do the best we can with each idea that crops up. It's important for us.
Mm.
Thanks.
Yep, no, that's a well-made point. And for the most patient wait of the evening, John, will come to you.
I don't know if anyone wants to answer what Charlie said, but maybe answer at the same time as you answer what I. Apologies, I missed the most interesting bit of the meeting in the middle. I thought it wasn't a good idea to walk through Raglan gazing at a screen rather than looking where I was going. So.
What did you do?
So I'm not sure whether you've already answered this, but it seems to me still that you could divert quite a lot with having composting toilets. And the other issue that I wanted to raise was the Coastal Reserves Management Plan, which we've got a deadline of the 6th of December to put responses in. And it seemed to me that some of the options for growing crops were really looking quite profitable. And if we could point to that and say you could actually make a better profit out of that than you can out of cattle, then it might be possible to use some, though not all of it, and actually show, as what's supposed to be a model farm, just what can be achieved. So there's those 2 points: one year reserve plan and the composting. How much would it take out?
Yeah, so you missed the middle part of the talk, John. You must have, I didn't quite catch why you went there, but it was the reserve management plan and the submissions needed was brought up. I just said on behalf of the project, yeah, I am going to be making a submission just to talk about where we've got to with it, and it is a farm, and cropping is farming, etc. It's not for the discharge purpose, it's more for the reuse side of things, I think. Yeah, composting toilets. I'll keep working on you with this. You're gonna get sick of me saying I'm gonna get your paper together, but again, yeah, I won't let it slide off. I know that it's part of the Raglan naturally area that you're looking after. So you're gonna that's your position on things. So that's cool.
It seems to me that you could actually divert quite a substantial amount if you came up with a decent system, and if there were the sort of finance that Chris was saying the NIA might be willing to put into it. And that if you do manage to divert a significant amount, then many of the problems that you've been talking about disappear.
Nothing's easy, eh? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, but it's a good point, and you've said you'll turn your mind to it, Stephen. That obviously diverting from our main system, is can be part of a solution, but it has to be of a volume that that's significant or material in terms of yeah. But I guess that was Charlie's point too. You add a lot of little bits together, and possibly it gets you quite a long way by the time you've taken all of those ideas on board, which I know you are. So you're busily writing it down now, Stephen. So that's all right. That brings us up to 8 o'clock. Is there anyone who's got a last comment? Any one of our participants here, Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask what, in terms of future proofing and all the scenarios that we're looking at, what kind of scale of growth is incorporated into the future proofing of our MBR or whatever solution we do go with? What kind of numbers are you working on?
Yes, so that was an important bit of work that's on the basis of Waikato 2070, well, you know where that is, and it was sort of like reverse engineering. Looking back at that, it was saying like on the actual bit of paper, it had 12,500 as the highest growth, but then what is WDC designing all their projects toward, and it's medium growth. So it would have been 8,500 was about 8,800 was about the medium growth expected over that time frame of 50 years. So that again, that's in a memo. I think I have.
Does that allow
distributed it before?
Does that allow for peak holiday peaks of 20 or 30,000 people? Because that's what we're going to have in a few years.
Yeah,
we're looking for you to say yes at this point, Stephen.
Yeah, and you know that the discharge is the biggest over the winter, so it's like you got to target the highs and lows. But again, it's sort of like, what are they doing in Coromandel? That's when things get crazy over the summer as well. So
yeah.
But here it's the winter. There's where the flows are more. So again, sorry, just off the top of my head, I can't. I'll have to talk to our populations guys on that, and I'll.
It's just, I think we just need to keep that in mind really clearly, so that when we do land on a BPO, that we are really got some future proofing in there. We're not back here in 10 years.
I think the point I'd take from it, Stephen, is which Chris is making. It is absolutely right for you to remind us of the assumptions you've made around flows and as driven by population, because there's no doubt that Raglan, whilst it might be easier to dispose of volumes, in summertime, the population is not 8,500 in summertime in 50 years time. It's double that now. So just restating what the assumptions are that drive those volumes you're working to. That would be useful.
Yep.
All right. Well, Ian, I'll come to you to close us for tonight.
I won't say too much actually, because I think it's been really informative and lots of details. So I'm not going to dwell on that too much. I think it's just really good to keep things going. Just a quick question to everyone: are they comfortable and happy with the amount of engagement we're getting? There's obviously a lot of work going on. So is everyone happy with this? The frequency, the detail? Are we on mark with the way that we're consulting and discussing stuff? Just a thumbs up will do. Or not, or down even. Hopefully a double. No, look, if there's anything, by all means, let us know. If there's different ways we could be doing it, or frequencies, etc., etc. I'm just keen to make sure that we're on mark, because we are doing a number of these at the same time, and conscious that it is quite difficult to keep everyone on the same page. But yeah, we're trying to drive the change accordingly. So yeah, thank you for all attending and putting in your wise words, and we'll keep on pushing on. And thank you, Stephen and Richard and the rest of the Watercare team for keeping on going on this. I know there's a hell of a lot on, and we have even more now. We've got this $11 million. We've got even more work on our plate in the next 18 months or so. So I was talking with the Watercare senior team today just about how we deliver on all this CapEx and looking for innovative ways to deliver that. So that's really cool. So we're hoping to do that in the new year, talk about ways to shrink the procurement process and get better solutions quicker. So we're going to be cutting edge kind of in terms of delivery as well, by the look of it. So it's pretty cool time. So good to be involved with. So yeah, any further questions of me? Sorry.
Just one last one from John. Did you just want to comment on your text?
Well, again, I might have missed something, but it sounded from what Steve was saying as though the winter flows are still the problem, and really they shouldn't be, because that means that something's going wrong and we're getting far too much stormwater coming into the system. And if we've got Chris's unlimited money, then maybe we ought to be looking at how we actually sort out our piping and stop all that stormwater getting into the system.
Yeah.
Stephen, do you have a comment on that? To what extent is stormwater commingling an issue?
Yeah, you've got the surface area of the ponds when it's ready. That's.
Do you want me to talk to that, Steve?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it is one bit of work we still have to do, and we've been trying to get the data of some of our key pump stations so we can assess it a little bit better to see, because any wastewater pipe network system does get wet weather peaking, and it's show me one in the world that is a gravity system, which is so minimizing the points and actually understanding it is a piece of work we'll try and get done in the next month or so. We've been looking at the data and we've been having a few problems getting there, Steve? So we will get there, and that's a very valid point that John brings up, is reducing the wet weather influences is a key issue, and it goes with any treatment plant to try and do that, and it's something we've got to put a bit more effort into.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Ian?
Could I just make a comment on that? When we were doing the applications for this, the funding from government, we did consider the inflow and infiltration issue across all of the plants. But what we looked at was what can we do? What's the best spend of money? And so we were looking at desludging of plants. We were looking at certain upgrades of networks. And when we looked at the sort of a priority basis of all this stuff, like getting the SCADA right, so we've got the controls of plants all at the best possible place, we saw those as more of a priority at this stage, just at that moment in time, than the I&I, knowing that we would get onto the I&I in due course with maybe a second round of funding or other ways to do it. So we were just, we did consider it, but in the priorities, we had to go for desludging and interim solutions at TK for UV and clarifier to stop potential prosecutions and keep everyone going on other projects. So yeah, we did consider it.
Yeah,
it was just a balancing act between everything that's going on. So yeah,
Richard?
Our focus for what we call inflow and infiltration reduction has been currently on Mary where we get, with such a small network, we get massive peaking factors that, in my experience, I've never ever seen before. It's such a small community. Plus, it's an old government-built infrastructure, which is creaky and old. So yeah, the one thing that Steve didn't mention in his report, probably, which we have done, which was interesting, Steve, was right now the modelling we've done in the harbour with the discharge, we've utilised that to optimise our discharge times and periods, and that's in the process of being implemented to improve it, Steve.
Richard, everyone was winding down. Chris was on his.
Oh yeah. Sorry,
we
should have. I just thought they should have realised that we actually are doing something with the stuff we've already done, as we're improving, and it makes quite a big difference to the dilution factor and the stuff go back into. So I think you should take a few brownie points here, Steve. You've done a bit of work and you've actually implemented a few things to improve it already.
Just okay, in 10 seconds, it was the past consenting was done before they had the day pond there. With the day pond now, there's a window where there's a smaller volume that gets discharged, and with the modelling that occurred, there was ability to maximise to distribute it to a point where the dilution is optimum and it goes out on the outgoing tide ASAP, and it doesn't linger around the coast or anything like that. So that was just something simple that could be done to reprogram the SCADA, and it wouldn't get lost in it. It would be just saying this. It would have just didn't get a chance to talk about it. So
I think Richard is right, though. I mean, it's not the preferred option going forward, but it's definitely making the most of the data you're gathering, the understanding you're gathering along the way, to at least improve this interim period until we get close to that future state. Okay, well, I will take your cue then, Stephen, and wind us up rather than, well, not wind up, but wind the meeting up. So look, it's been a really positive meeting again, and I, you know, I'm sort of starting to feel a little bit like an insider, but still an outsider really. You know, I'm certainly feeling the positive, constructive way in which this community is working together to actually find some solutions here. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. And Carol will be in contact with some new dates, Carol or Teresa, for the next update. Are we hoping for one before Christmas? Squeeze one in, or just after? Carol, do you know?
Don't know. Depends whether we have enough information for another one, and whether we can fit one in, because usually it's pretty busy, hectic getting up to Christmas.
I think we've only got about 25 working days to Christmas. Can I make a request? We are so bloody busy trying to deliver on everything. Could we push this to after Christmas? That would certainly give the team a massive help to push on with stuff. So if I can beg you for that, it will just lighten the load. We are under a lot of stress. So everybody happy with that, to push it into the end of January, maybe? Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. We're not hiding anything. It allows us to get on. So all good. Much appreciated. So have a good Christmas, everyone. I don't see you before. There we go. The first Christmas cheer.
I still feel like smacking people in the face when they say Merry Christmas, but anyway, that's
it's a virtual one, is it?
It's not a bar humbug thing. It's just, it's just, you know, it just seems too soon. But yeah, fair enough.
Absolutely. Yeah, all the very best for holiday season. Anyway, there we go. A bit more neutral.
Indeed.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers,
And yeah, thanks. Good night. Cal, can you just stay on for a second? And
Thanks, team. Catch up.
Okay.
thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Steve, can you email me a teeny summary, because I'll update the community board?
Yeah, no dramas. I'll do it on Thursday. Oh,
Yeah.
When's your next meeting?
Not till December 5th, I think. But I have to get the report in by the 27th.
Yeah, no dramas. I've got it
Cheers,
on my
mate.
list. Yep, choice. No worries. Okay, see ya.
Carol, I've made you co-host. Can you just save the chat? Do you know how to do that? Under more, I think it is. No, not under more. Under chat, maybe. There's a file thing.
Yeah.
File. Your computer. Save it. Box. Dropbox.
Yeah, if you can just save it there, and then you can email it to Teresa or yourself.
Oh, yep. So save that.
It's progressing well, as you say.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
Do you want to stop recording?
Yeah, that's a good point there, Carol.